After 50, the knee responds less to how much weight we demand it to tolerate and more to how thoughtfully we ask it to move, because the biology of the joint has shifted in subtle but meaningful ways. Cartilage, unlike muscle, does not adapt quickly to overload. It relies on gentle compression and release to receive nutrients, and when forces become abrupt or excessive, especially under deep bending and heavy load, the tissue does not grow stronger, it grows irritated. This is why movements that once felt empowering can begin to feel confrontational. The knee is no longer impressed by intensity alone. It seeks clarity, alignment, and time under control. Intelligent movement begins with understanding force. When load increases faster than stability, the knee becomes the point of compromise. After 50, the stabilizing muscles around the joint often fire with less precision, not because they are weak, but because the nervous system has adapted to years of repetitive patterns. Heavy loading in this state reinforces imbalance. Lighter, controlled resistance, however, gives the brain the opportunity to refine coordination. Strength built this way may look quieter, but it is more durable. It distributes stress across muscle, tendon, and bone instead of funneling it into cartilage. There is also the matter of recovery. Younger joints rebound quickly from aggressive sessions because circulation, hormone signaling, and tissue repair operate at a faster rhythm. With age, recovery slows, not as a flaw, but as a signal to train differently. Intelligent movement respects this rhythm. It uses tempo, range control, and strategic rest to stimulate adaptation without provoking inflammation. The knee thrives when it is challenged just enough to invite repair, not overwhelm it. Load, in this context, becomes less about kilograms and more about leverage. A movement that places the knee in a mechanically favorable position can build remarkable strength with minimal external weight. When the shin remains more vertical and the hips share the work, the knee experiences stability rather than collapse. This allows the quadriceps to work isometrically, the hamstrings to assist with control, and the glutes to absorb force as they were designed to do. The result is strength that feels supportive rather than demanding. Intelligence in movement also means honoring sensation. Pain is not the enemy, but it is information. When training prioritizes control, the knee often reports back with clarity instead of protest. Subtle improvements appear first as confidence, standing up without hesitation, descending stairs without bracing. These are neurological victories before they are muscular ones. The brain learns that the joint is safe, and safety is the foundation of sustainable strength. Perhaps the most profound shift after 50 is philosophical. Strength training stops being a test of willpower and becomes an act of stewardship. Intelligent movement accepts that longevity is built through consistency, not conquest. The knee does not need to be dominated to become strong, it needs to be guided. When load is chosen with respect for structure and timing, the joint adapts quietly, reliably, and with far less drama, allowing strength to grow in a way that feels cooperative, grounded, and deeply sustainable. Joint longevity is rarely the result of one muscle working harder than all the others. It emerges when responsibility is shared, distributed, and coordinated across the system. Around the knee, this principle becomes especially important with age. The quadriceps often receive most of the attention, yet they are only one voice in a much larger conversation. When they dominate movement without support, the knee absorbs forces it was never meant to manage alone. Balance, not brute force, is what preserves the joint over decades of use. The glutes play a quiet but essential role in this balance. They control the position of the femur, guiding how the knee tracks during movement. When they are underactive, the knee drifts inward or forward under load, increasing stress on cartilage and ligaments. With age, prolonged sitting and limited hip movement can dull this connection. Reactivating the glutes is not about squeezing harder, but about restoring timing. When they engage early, they absorb force before it reaches the knee, acting as shock absorbers rather than spectators. The hamstrings add another layer of protection by controlling deceleration. Every time we lower into a chair, step down, or slow our stride, the hamstrings regulate how quickly the knee bends. Without this braking system, movement becomes abrupt, and abrupt movement is stressful for joint surfaces. Over 50, many people lose hamstring elasticity, not because the muscle is weak, but because it has stopped being asked to slow motion with precision. Training that emphasizes controlled lowering restores this function and reduces strain where the knee is most vulnerable. The quadriceps themselves benefit from this shared workload. When supported by glutes and hamstrings, they can stabilize the knee without excessive tension. This is crucial, because chronic overuse of the quadriceps can increase compressive forces behind the kneecap, contributing to discomfort over time. Balanced engagement allows the quadriceps to do their job without becoming the sole guardians of the joint. Strength becomes cooperative rather than compensatory. What makes this coordination powerful is the nervous system. Muscles do not act independently, they respond to signals shaped by experience. Repetitive patterns teach the brain which muscles to rely on and which to ignore. With age, these patterns become more rigid, making imbalance feel normal. Movement that encourages even participation rewrites these signals. Slow, deliberate exercises give the brain time to recognize contribution from each muscle group, reinforcing harmony rather than hierarchy. This shared effort also improves circulation within the joint. Muscles contracting and releasing in rhythm pump fluid through the knee, nourishing cartilage that cannot feed itself directly. When only one muscle group dominates, this rhythm becomes uneven. Balanced movement restores flow, supporting tissue health in ways that heavy loading alone cannot achieve. Ultimately, joint longevity is preserved not by isolating strength, but by cultivating conversation between muscles. The knee thrives when it is supported from above and behind, guided rather than forced. When glutes, hamstrings, and quadriceps work together, movement feels smoother, quieter, and more confident. Strength expressed this way does not announce itself loudly, but it endures, allowing the knee to remain a willing partner in motion rather than a fragile point of concern. Exercises that limit forward knee stress while emphasizing hip involvement change the entire mechanical story of movement, especially after 50. When the knee travels aggressively forward under load, the joint experiences increased shear forces that challenge ligaments and compress cartilage in ways that recovery can no longer easily resolve. This does not mean the knee is fragile, but it does mean it prefers cooperation. By shifting more responsibility to the hips, the body redistributes force toward larger, more resilient muscles that are structurally designed to handle it. The hips serve as the central engine of human movement. They are supported by thick layers of muscle and strong connective tissue, capable of absorbing load and generating power with less strain. When exercises encourage the hips to hinge, sit back, or share depth, the knee becomes a stabilizer rather than a driver. This distinction is crucial. A stabilizing joint maintains alignment and control, while a driving joint absorbs force. After 50, the knee performs best in the former role. Limiting forward knee stress also improves alignment. When the knee tracks too far ahead of the foot, the body often compensates by collapsing inward or shifting weight unpredictably. These micro-adjustments may be subtle, but over time they accumulate stress. Hip-driven movements create clearer lines of force from the ground up. The foot stays grounded, the knee tracks smoothly, and the pelvis guides motion from above. This vertical stacking reduces unnecessary strain and increases efficiency. Another benefit of hip emphasis is improved muscle timing. When the hips initiate movement, the glutes activate earlier, setting the stage for controlled knee motion. Early glute activation has been shown to reduce knee valgus and improve joint stability. For older adults, this timing is more important than range or resistance. The nervous system learns to prepare the knee for movement instead of reacting to it after stress has already occurred. There is also a psychological dimension to reducing knee stress. Many people over 50 approach lower body exercise with caution shaped by past discomfort. When movements feel knee dominant, tension rises, and tension alters mechanics. Hip-focused exercises feel safer, more grounded. This sense of safety allows the body to relax into the movement, improving coordination and reducing protective stiffness. Confidence becomes a catalyst for strength. From a tissue perspective, emphasizing the hips reduces repetitive compression behind the kneecap. This area is particularly sensitive to high load, deep knee flexion patterns performed frequently. Hip-dominant movements distribute work across the posterior chain, giving the knee periods of relative rest within each repetition. This intermittent relief supports cartilage health by balancing load and recovery. Importantly, limiting forward knee stress does not mean avoiding knee bending altogether. The knee still moves, but it does so within a range that respects its current capacity. The goal is not restriction, but refinement. As hip strength and control improve, the knee naturally tolerates more without being forced to adapt prematurely. Over time, this approach reshapes how the body experiences effort. Strength feels smoother, more integrated, less localized. The knee no longer carries the burden of movement alone, and in that shared responsibility, stability emerges. The joint becomes quieter, not because it is avoided, but because it is finally supported by the system that surrounds it, allowing motion to feel fluid, intentional, and sustainable. Slow, supported movements rebuild trust between the brain and the joint in a way that no amount of intensity ever could, especially after 50. Pain, stiffness, or instability often linger not because the knee is structurally damaged, but because the nervous system has learned to associate certain movements with threat. When this happens, the brain tightens muscles, shortens range, and alters coordination in an attempt to protect. These protective strategies may reduce immediate discomfort, but over time they limit strength and reinforce dysfunction. Slowness interrupts this cycle. When movement is slowed down, the brain receives clearer information. Each phase of the motion becomes a signal rather than a blur. Sensors in muscles, tendons, and joints report position and tension in real time, allowing the nervous system to update its expectations. Supported movements, such as using assistance from a chair, wall, or handhold, reduce uncertainty. The joint feels guided rather than exposed. This sense of control is essential for rebuilding confidence. Trust is not an abstract concept in the body, it is a measurable neurological state. When the brain perceives safety, it allows muscles to activate more fully and in better sequence. Slow movements create an environment where this permission can be granted. Instead of bracing, the body begins to organize. The knee experiences load gradually, and gradual load is far easier to interpret than sudden force. Over time, this exposure retrains the nervous system to tolerate motion without alarm. Supported exercises also allow for precision. Without the pressure to balance or rush, attention can shift to alignment, breathing, and smooth transitions. These details matter. Small improvements in knee tracking or hip engagement can dramatically change joint stress. Slowness gives the body time to feel these differences. What once felt unstable begins to feel predictable, and predictability is deeply calming to the nervous system. There is a powerful relationship between speed and fear. Fast movements demand rapid decision-making, and when confidence is low, the body hesitates. This hesitation often manifests as stiffness or pain. Slow movements remove urgency. They invite exploration rather than performance. This exploratory quality allows the brain to test range and strength without committing fully, gradually expanding what feels safe. From a physiological perspective, slow, supported motion improves circulation within the joint. Controlled compression and release help move synovial fluid, nourishing cartilage and reducing stiffness. This process is most effective when movement is smooth and continuous. Jerky or rushed repetitions interrupt this flow. Over time, improved circulation contributes to a sensation of warmth and ease that reinforces positive feedback. The emotional component should not be underestimated. Many individuals over 50 carry a quiet fear of injury, shaped by stories, past setbacks, or medical labels. Slow, supported movement creates small, repeated successes. Each successful repetition sends a message to the brain that the knee is capable. Confidence grows not from dramatic progress, but from consistency without consequence. As trust returns, the need for support naturally diminishes. Speed can increase, load can grow, but now these elements are layered onto a foundation of safety. The joint is no longer something to brace against, but something to move with. In this environment, pain often softens, not because it was forced away, but because the nervous system has learned that movement is no longer a threat, allowing strength and ease to coexist in the same space. Training after 50 marks a quiet but profound shift in perspective, where exercise is no longer about proving capacity, but about preserving possibility. Earlier in life, the body often responds positively to being pushed, challenged, even dominated. It adapts quickly, recovers efficiently, and rewards effort with visible gains. With age, the same approach can feel increasingly expensive. The joints begin to negotiate rather than comply, and this negotiation is not weakness, but wisdom. The body is asking for collaboration instead of command. Preserving movement quality means paying attention to how motion feels, not just what it accomplishes. A repetition performed with balance, control, and ease strengthens not only muscle, but the communication between systems. This communication becomes more important than maximal output. When movement is clean, force travels through the body efficiently. When it is rushed or misaligned, force leaks into joints that were never meant to absorb it. Over time, these leaks accumulate as discomfort or limitation. Resilience at this stage of life is not built through intensity alone, but through consistency that the body can tolerate day after day. High-quality movement creates resilience by reducing recovery debt. When joints are respected, the nervous system remains calm, inflammation stays low, and adaptation continues quietly in the background. This allows training to remain a regular part of life rather than an intermittent cycle of effort and repair. Alignment plays a central role in this philosophy. The way the feet meet the ground, the way the hips guide motion, the way the spine organizes load all influence how the knees experience force. Preserving quality means honoring these relationships. Small adjustments in stance or tempo can dramatically change joint stress. This awareness transforms exercise into a skill rather than a task. Skills improve with practice, not punishment. There is also an emotional maturity that accompanies this shift. Training becomes less about comparison and more about continuity. The goal is not to match past versions of the self, but to support the present one. This mindset reduces frustration and increases patience, two qualities that directly affect how the body adapts. Stress, whether mental or physical, alters movement patterns. Calm attention restores them. Longevity-focused training values recovery as much as effort. Rest is no longer an absence of work, but a strategic component of progress. When recovery is sufficient, tissues adapt and confidence grows. When it is neglected, even the best exercises lose their benefit. Quality movement respects this balance, creating space for adaptation rather than forcing it. Perhaps the most meaningful aspect of this approach is how it reframes strength. Strength becomes the ability to move without hesitation, to trust the body in daily tasks, to remain capable without constant vigilance. This form of strength is subtle but deeply empowering. It allows the knees, and the rest of the body, to remain partners in living rather than obstacles to manage. By prioritizing movement quality, alignment, and sustainability, training after 50 becomes an act of care rather than confrontation. It supports not just the joints, but the entire human experience of movement, allowing strength to serve life instead of demanding to be proven, and in doing so, it preserves the freedom to move with confidence, dignity, and ease.